Hey, good frosty morning, Patriots. It's like low 30s, and I'm telling you, the wind chill right now, holy frosty shit. It's got to be in the 20s. So, if you're watching this at some point in your life, I'm hoping something didn't add up that you were being told by the networks. You were watching news one night and you said, wait a second. Fucking jet fuel burns at 1500, and I know hardened steel takes at least 2600 degrees to liquefy. So how in the hell did they find, how did government officials end up reporting seeing pools of liquefied steel at ground zero days after 9/11? That's documented. And if you got that far, you started to really question the narrative. Like, how in the fuck did Tower 7 even fall? And how is it possible for the nose of a fucking jet airliner to penetrate a concrete encrusted steel skeleton of a building, not one but two? How is it possible that nose could have penetrated all the way through? Maybe that led you to oh good lord, Project Northwoods, which might have caused you to ponder maybe that Project Bluebeam existed, which it does. At least in my opinion it does. And I've done enough research to scare the shit out of anybody that wants to have a few questions answered. I think that the rabbit hole that we currently find ourselves in is so nefarious and so twisted that most normies will seriously have cases of CD. CD is cognitive dissonance. That's when you receive data that is so contrary to your reality that by accepting that new data, it causes you to question everything you've learned. And I think that's what a red pill moment is. You begin to question. And that's what happened to me shortly after 9/11. I received my bachelor's degree in geology in 97. And you can check my transcripts. I'm pretty sure there was a class of metallurgy in there required. I wasn't the greatest undergrad, but I was a hell of a graduate student, most recently in my 50s. And I'm telling you, and by the way, I'm also one of those guys that has worked for a living ever since my first job delivering newspapers, which eventually led to me being a buck private in the U.S. Army. Well, I was never really a buck private. Won't get into details, but I went in as a PV2. I earned my way in there as a PV2. But I'm the guy that works. And I knew from working demolition crews with environmental management and compliance out of Chittenango Falls, New York, I knew that what I was watching on 9/11, those were controlled demolitions. There was no question in my mind about it. And yet nobody else seemed to see it. But see, the thing is, what we were actually seeing on 9/11 was a lot worse than most people fucking realize. Funny, nobody seems to want to factor in the fact that most of the debris was dust. Oh, there were the steel survived, but everything else seemed to be dust. Not a whole lot of body parts found. It seemed to just vaporize, if you will. And then when you factor in the new findings, that the fact that the first responders, many of them, and many of the firemen that survived that day, that risked their lives going in, they're dying of freaking two things: thyroid cancer, as well as congestive illnesses, heart and lung disease. Why is that relevant? Well, if everything went to dust, and you really take a look at the videos that we were fed on 9/11, and then you take into account that Tower 1 and 2 had an adjoining passageway between them. If you place, and I'm not saying this is exactly what happened, but if you were to place a nuclear device within that passage, say one with limited stability, where it would dissipate, where the radiation would, I forget, there's a term for it, and forgive me, I'm old, I'm aware that it exists, but I can't remember the exact word. But it's kind of like, it's almost like a safe nuclear bomb. Well, all these first responders dying of thyroid cancer, some kind of dirty bomb would explain exactly that. Well, a dirty bomb wouldn't, but one of those little suitcase bombs that were misplaced out in freaking Russia when the whole freaking continent went from the USSR to their member states. There were something like, I think, 57 of them reported missing. You place a small nuclear device within a passageway like that, and if you watch the way the towers went down and the speed at which they went down, and you factor in the fact that all the concrete and all the human remains literally was turned to dust, and then factor in the thyroid cancer, I believe what 9/11 actually was, not only was it an attempt to get us into a war, but that the elite care so little about us that they were willing to vaporize nearly 3,000 people, innocent victims, some of them their own people. Think about that for a second. That's how little they care about you and me. And if you're listening to this, my name isn't Neo, and it's not Morpheus, it's Jim. I'm just a guy that's bounced his head off the fucking basement floor or rock bottom more times than I can count. I served my country as honorably as I could, but unfortunately going in, I wasn't aware of trauma that I suffered as a child that was hidden from me, thank the Lord. Unfortunately, that kind of thing can't stay hidden for long, and when I had suffered a night terror while in the service. I was sent into psych, and during psych eval, my demons exposed themselves. Let's just put it that way and leave it at that. I convinced them that I was faking it because I didn't want to go home dishonored. So they made me an admin specialist from being a member of the Signal Corps, and I'm just going to leave it at that because at the time I had TS with a crypto identifier. So eventually I got out honorably after cold cocking report with a staff sergeant who called my girlfriend a puta, who I was coming into the barracks with after having my ear nearly torn off while working as a riot patrolman at a beer fest. And I gotta tell you one last thing, I'm freezing my ass off telling you guys this shit right now. Listen, if you're following me, at some point you question the narrative. Maybe it wasn't 9/11. Maybe it was this shit that's recently going on. Maybe it was the Obama administration that woke you up to something not being right. I'm nobody. I'm not going to try to ever sell you anything. But you know what I have discovered over the course of the nearly 6 freaking decades I've been on this planet? God is real. And if you have enough faith, like me, you can survive not only your own mistakes and your own bad decisions, you can also survive the shit that life throws at you unscathed. Please, God, help me get through one more day. Get me there. You've had my 6 all this time. Help us unite together with Donald J. Trump, all the members of Q, our military, law enforcement, especially Vets for Child Rescue, so that united we can defeat the evil that preys upon the innocent children of the world through glory and light of having faith in you and your love and forgiveness. Amen.